What makes a friend? It's a question that I've been reflecting on a lot recently as various things have happened in my life and in the lives of my friends that have left me with a profound sense of gratitude for those relationships, many of which are decades old. My junior year of college, I joined an all-female a cappella group. We were the GW Pitches, and those women changed my life. 5 of us became particularly close, and by close, I mean completely wrapped up in one another's lives for years. We used to say that the only reason that any of us ever did anything was so that we could all sit around and talk about it the next day. We lived together in various combinations when we were in our early 20s, and I am now appalled to discover that we're all just about 40. It was only a second ago that we were camped out in our college dorm rooms watching episodes of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and drinking bottom shelf wine. We used to go to the Bertucci's in Foggy Bottom and take up a table for hours and just fill up on rolls so that we could take our dinners home to save some money. We were there for each other through everything. When we fell in love, and when we broke up, when we were the dumper and when we were the dumpee, through engagements and weddings, through the kids that were born and the kids that weren't. We know the love and the hard truths that are present in each of our family systems, and we ride with each other when mental illness or addiction reemerges in a loved one. We've celebrated professional and personal triumphs with one another, and I vividly remember falling to my knees when one of their mothers suddenly and tragically died. And we dropped everything to get to the funeral. In some of my own darkest moments, I have been so profoundly grateful for their simple presence in my life, for that very tangible and real knowledge that I was not alone. We're spread out across the country now doing our different things. One works in telehealth policy. One is in publishing. One organizes and runs documentary film festivals. One is a chef. And I am a priest. Honestly, we're a pretty odd collection of women. And they are the owners of no small piece of my heart. And after all of that, the question remains, what makes a friend? Why is it these women for me? Why them and not the thousands of other women at George Washington University at the time? Or even the handful of other women that were in our a cappella group? What makes a friend? When we describe a good friend, we often say that it is someone who is trustworthy, or kind, or gentle, someone who allows us to be our authentic selves. Someone we can call, and we do call, in times of need or trouble, and we can count on them to be there. And all of those things are true and good and noble, and yet somehow it doesn't feel like enough. What makes a friend? When I think about my relationship with these women, these pitches, and I think about what makes that web of relationships unique, I realize that it is not about what they would do for me. It's about what I would be willing to do for them. I cannot think of much I would not do if those women asked me to. And that is part of the moment that Jesus is having with his disciples in our reading from John for today. This passage from John is in the middle of what is called the farewell discourse. It's this long speech that Jesus makes at the Last Supper. And in some ways, it is the most common of scenes. Jesus is having dinner with his friends. Maybe they are drinking bottom shelf wine and shooting the breeze. But it's also the night of Jesus's arrest, the night before he will die. And Jesus is coming to terms with exactly how far he is willing to go for these people. Just what he is willing to do for these disciples of his. And so he looks around the table at Peter and John and James and Mary and all the rest. And maybe he pauses to think about all that they have been through together. And then this is the moment when he declares them his friends. The disciples were with him, present at that dinner, present with him in that moment of unbelievable challenge for Jesus. And perhaps it was the gratitude that Jesus felt for his friends, the sense of thankfulness that they were in his life that poured out of him at the Last Supper. Maybe that is why Jesus asked them to remember him when they were just like this, sitting around a table, eating and drinking together. And maybe that is what we are celebrating when we celebrate Holy Eucharist, which is the Greek word for thanksgiving. We're celebrating the gratitude that Jesus had for his disciples, for his friends. Maybe we're celebrating the gratitude that we have for our friends. When I think about the pitches, what makes those friendships so deep isn't about the kind of people they are, it's about the kind of person they make me want to be. And maybe in that dinner with his friends, when Jesus knew he was under threat from the Jewish and Roman leadership, maybe he found the inspiration that comes from friendship and discovered something else about who he wanted to be. The disciples would come to disappoint in those next few days. But again, the transformation that comes from friendship isn't about them. It's about him, about how their friendship changed him and what he realized he was willing to do for them. It's about the ways in which friendships mark all of our lives, making us stronger and braver and kinder and more honest versions of ourselves. So what makes a friend? I think it's still a little intangible. But I think the answer is less about the other person and more about the transformations that those relationships make in us. So sometime this week, I invite you to phone a friend. Maybe someone that you love but you haven't talked to in a while, and reconnect with them. Tell them how grateful you are for the changes that they have made in you. And then take a moment to consider. Jesus called his followers friends because he realized what he was willing to do for them. So my question is this: do you call Jesus a friend? And if so, what would you be willing to do for him?